Everybody, this is Rustin with Metal Nation. I'm joined today by Adam Kopecky and Michael Maselbas. I'm not sure if I butchered both those last names, but they are of Glacier. How are you guys doing today?
Very well. How about yourself?
I'm doing good. How bad did I do on the names?
Got mine right. He's Maselbas.
Maselbas. Okay, there we go.
Different vowel stress. Close enough.
Well, thank you for taking the time to come chat with us. Glacier's debut album, The Passing of Time. I love what you did with all the wordplay there on that because it makes perfect sense. 40 years in the making, 35 years since the debut EP came out. Why was now the time to put this all back together?
Well, the whole thing started out, there used to be an annual show, a festival in Chicago at Reggie's called Ragnarok, right? And it had featured a lot of throwback 80s bands and stuff like that. And they got in contact with Padrebo about getting Glacier on the bill. And it didn't quite work out that way, that the original members couldn't or wouldn't do it or something of that nature. So they had decided to put together a tribute band. One thing led to another. Mike got involved. He got me involved. And then that show fell through before we even got to do it. And we got an offer to go play Keep It True in Germany in 2017. And everything just kind of picked up from there. So he and I had actually been writing new music together, just started brand new project right before all this picked up. And we decided at the time we had a few ideas laying around, and we were like, well, why not just record an EP ourselves? We weren't actually shooting for a full-length album until the thing started getting in development. We had bounced the idea around with a few people, and they're like, well, nobody makes a comeback EP. So we're like, okay, yeah, we'll add a few songs to it. We talked to Lauren and Tim. They had a few unreleased ideas to kind of bolster the set list, and it came together quite nicely.
Yeah, and for those who are unaware, it's kind of an interesting dynamic because Michael, the vocalist, has been with the band basically since the beginning. He was the original vocalist for the most part, and he's the only original member of the band. But Lauren and Tim were both involved a little bit in this project because 3 of the previous songs, I believe, came from the golden years, so to speak, but a lot of great new material as well. So how did that dynamic all work? Because Lauren and Tim appeared on 2 or 3 tracks on the album. You guys wrote new music for it. They're not in the band, but they're still there. So maybe sort of explain that for everybody who's not familiar with Glacier.
Well, a few months before we had started doing the album, we played a show, Northwest Metal Fest in Seattle, and Tim Proctor came out and played 2 or 3 songs with us on stage live that festival. So we kind of got to meet and greet him at that point. And then, of course, when the talk of us actually gaining the name Glacier as opposed to the Devil in Disguise tribute act we had started as, Lauren and Tim were very much involved with all that conversation. So once we had always been kind of in contact with them as far as learning old material or finding out solo bits and, like reference copies of anything they had lying around. And it was great to have their endorsement as far as like, yeah, I like this new material. And so when the album started becoming a conversation, they had suggested, hey, we got these songs that never got recorded. Maybe the fans would like them. So we're like, yeah. And after demoing out these songs and talking with them and going back and forth with all the file work and stuff, we figured, well, why not just you guys come out and join us in the studio and perform the parts yourselves on bass and drums. And so they did. That was a great weekend.
Right. And I believe Michael, he's still in Portland, but you guys are all pretty much in Chicago. Lauren's in North Carolina, I believe.
Yeah, right. Marco, the other guitarist, actually lives in Wisconsin.
Oh, wow.
And our bassist, Alex, is coming out from Indiana. So it's pretty spread out dynamic. But we rehearse in Chicago. It's all kind of Chicago-based as far as where we're playing and keeping our gear anyway.
Right. Well, and it makes, I mean, this is something that we can do in this day and age that you guys couldn't have done back when the original EP came out. They didn't have Pro Tools and digital files and stuff that you could send then. So this wouldn't have happened. But so let's talk about the album because it's 8 tracks, but they're phenomenal. It's a great album. It'll be on our top 50 albums of the year article when it comes out later this month. So you have the 3 songs, but they weren't, I don't know if they were complete, the 3 that were done with Tim and Lauren from the golden days, so to speak. I believe you co-wrote some of the lyrics on Infidel. How much were you guys involved with sort of finalizing the older tracks?
Well, we had always started the new templates, you know, on the new modern DAW and stuff. I'm using Logic, you use Reaper and stuff. So we find our own workarounds as far as file sharing and stuff. And I'm very savvy at MIDI drum programming and so forth. So I always get the template set up and the tempo and all that and build, you know, the structure for everybody else to start and lay their parts on and so forth. So I forgot where the rest of the question was leading there, actually.
It's kind of how much were you guys involved with the development of the three older songs? And then we'll talk about the new ones in a minute. But
yeah, I think for the most part, most of those were mainly finished. I think there was some interpretation work as far as leads and such, right?
Yeah. So even with the original EP stuff, when we played that live and we were getting that going, so yeah, Adam would tab out the drums, figure out tempo, and send me that so I'd have a blank drum track to play with. And then it'd be going back to the old recordings and throwing them in my DAW and slowing them down, whatever, pitch correcting, whatever wasn't exactly in E standard,
Right.
back in the day, because, you know, you put on vinyl, whatever, it's not like a straight tuning, you know, depending on your record player speed and all that stuff and how it was ripped digitally. Because I think the first EP, I downloaded that off online. Like, I didn't even pay for that. We were told about the project, and I was like, oh, I don't even have this, so I'm gonna have to get it somehow. So I just ripped it offline, and then and then had to kind of play around with it, and then start decoding everything. But those 3 songs, Infidel, Sands, and Whip, yeah, we took those from different spots too, because Whip. We got an old video of Glacier, like the original Glacier, way back in the day, playing some live sets somewhere, and the audio quality it's very, very bad. So Adam did the best he could to kind of figure out what was going on with the drums, and then I did the same with the guitars, just because the audio quality was
it was like a digital version of a cassette tape transfer from an old VHS or something like that. So there was a lot of warble going on and such. But basically, yeah, we assembled all the demos and then would keep Lauren and Tim informed, you know, send in files and get their approval, or, hey, what do you think about this part and stuff? And then I believe Tim did send us bass tracks that he recorded on his own home assembly, but Lauren was basically just practicing, getting ready for the studio. And then, you know, that weekend he performed all the stuff, having prepared on his own terms.
All right, so you guys were involved with putting some of those together. So let's talk about the 5 tracks that are all new. 2 of my favorites bookend the album, Eldest and Truest to open it, and then, of course, Temple. My brain just shut down on me there. It's been a long day. The final song. Tell me about those 2 first, because as I mentioned, they're 2 of my favorites. And the first one, Eldest and Truest, when that opens up, I just fell in love with the album right there. When I heard that, I'm like, how the hell have I never heard of these guys before? They've been around all these years. And of course, that's when I discover, well, not really true, but
yeah. It's a unique story. Eldest was actually one of the first ideas we had, basically, when we started talking about writing new material. The 3 of us, it was Michael Mendoza was playing guitar in the original new Inception. And so we all pooled some riffs and ideas that we had lying about. And that was basically a full structure of a song that I had put together on bass and drums. And a pre-existing idea that had just been this vague thing from before I even started playing drums back as a teenager. And, you know, very Iron Maiden influence and stuff. So when we were trying to bring forth some new classic sounding material, I had this thing lying about, and I kind of reassembled it with drums, fixed all the little nuances, and then sent it to Maselbas, and he was like, here, put some guitars to it. And he did, and it kind of flushed everything out that way. And then Padrebo and I kind of went back and forth as far as working the vocals in there. I wrote the lyrics and kind of did a rough draft and sent it to him, and he put his spin on it, and back and forth. I believe the Temple was kind of an inverted situation where it was riffs you had lying around.
I think that tempo riff, the intro riff, was one of the first ideas, right? Wasn't it before Elvis? But that one kind of got thrown on the.
We started
shelf
working
for a
on
while.
it earlier, yeah.
Yeah.
And it was in a different kind of, it had a different drum pattern going to it and a different tempo. And we tried a few different things and it was like, this isn't clicking. So then I think I slowed down the tempo and half-timed the drums and gave it more of that groove that you hear in the intro. And the rest of it kind of culminated from that, just passing the file back and forth. He'd add some guitars, I'd add some guitars and bass and so forth. It's been very fun being able to be so collaborative with the shaping process of the song.
Right. Well, and it's, I mean, when you're coming into, because it sort of made me wonder, why here's this band, this classic band that never really got to go anywhere with things. And then the singer comes to you guys and you guys have this new band together. It's like, what made you guys want to jump in to do this instead of just doing your own thing like you were talking about? And I sort of know, like Michael Maselbas, his influences are like Sabotage, stuff like that. What are the influences that you guys have as songwriters and as musicians that you brought into the project?
Well, I mean, as far as like the other four of us, I mean, none of us are really into the scene too much that we play in. It's like we love all that stuff, but when it comes to the strictly heavy metal stuff, I mean, it's pretty much Maiden and Priest for us.
Yeah. I mean, the obvious go-tos, a couple other bits and pieces here and there. As far as like the classic scene influence and stuff, you got, obviously Ozzy, little bit of Malmsteen, parts like that and stuff. So there's a bit of crossover. But as far as what made us want to do this, I mean, everybody in the band, despite having different like go-to genres, as it were, everybody does have a love for the classics, of course.
Right.
And we kind of tap the roots and draw from that element. But originally what got us into doing this was just the idea of playing a fun-sounding festival in Chicago. And we had no expectation that it would turn into something like this whatsoever. But then, of course, meeting Padrabo and getting to know him and working with him on stuff, and then meeting other guys from the band and becoming more and more acquainted with the Glacier world, right. And especially meeting the fans of them outside of the country, it's just built that loyalty. And now that we've actually got our own musical investment into it, it's
right.
Quite comfortable.
Right. And apparently when I wrote my review originally, I ended up going back and fixing it, but I want to make sure I get this right. Phil Ross from Manila Road was involved on a couple of tracks, I think. Which tracks were they and how did that come about?
Okay, that
Right Out in Temple.
Yeah, it was the songs Ride Out, and he played bass on Temple in the Tomb. But they were, I forgot how that came about, because we were between bassists at the time that we were starting to do the album. So and we had been talking to him about I think he was working with Padrabo as far as making merchandise for shows and so forth.
Gotcha.
And then we met him at Keep It True as well. And so when we were thinking about, well, who's going to track these bass lines, his name came up, and we kind of kept him in line with the development of the demos and stuff. But it was mainly just like showing him parts and stuff and having him as a featured guest on the album, which was great.
Right. Yeah, I got it wrong because I guess Encyclopedia Metallica or Metallum or whatever, with the go-to for all of us to get the info, they had it wrong. So, but
the info on that, like pretty much all wrong.
True. So Valor is one of the other great tracks on the album. Well, they're all great, but that's the one you guys did the video for. Tell us a little bit about that track, and do you guys have plans to do any more videos from the album, or just looking at getting back on the road?
Yeah, we don't have any current plans to do more videos, because there was the lyric video for Eldest that kind of went with the release and so forth. So we didn't want to double down on that song. If we did another video, it would probably be for Ride Out, but we don't have any real intentions as it is now. We're kind of looking at more making up new material and stuff. You know, as long as shows are off the menu right now, we want to keep busy and keep productive, keep moving forward.
Right.
But
Valor, that's Marco's
Yeah.
tune.
yeah, Marco came up with that one.
Yeah, I can't really speak much for him, but
Yeah, he kind of worked it up to a mostly ready, presentable state. I kind of just adjusted the MIDI drums in the demo file a bit to kind of give it a bit more of a classic, you know, take out some of the metal drum fills and stuff like that. And then you had some leads you put in.
I had the main lead towards the end of the song. That was my only contribution to that.
Yeah.
And then he did pretty much all the other stuff.
Yeah.
I got like kind of like a maybe like a Saxon type vibe or Acceptish type thing, Udo, whatever, you know. So
Yeah.
influence on that.
Yeah, and then he had worked with Padrabo on developing the vocals and stuff too, which I think he had gotten kind of a template in place and presented it to Mike.
Right. Great song. There's a couple we still haven't talked about, but I wanted to ask in particular, you've got two fantastic guitarists in the band. How do you see your guys' styles as complementary and different?
Well,
That's all you.
yeah, right.
I'm not putting
Drummers to the side for a moment.
I mean, we're definitely different guitar players for sure. I've known Marco before the Glacier thing because we were in an old band Against the Plagues. It was kind of like a black and death metal thing.
Right.
He left that band. I took over for him, and I kind of met him somewhere between doing shows with that band and whatever. That didn't last long. And then I joined Marco's main band at the time, which was Dead Hand System, kind of like a Vader type, you know, extreme death metal thing, you know. And then around that time, we were having trouble with bass players. And I asked Marco to come in, and then he played bass for a bit, jumped on guitar. And I think a lot of that writing, at least the main bulk of the album, was pretty much set into place before he kind of got onto guitars, right?
Yeah.
Elvis was done. Temple was pretty much done. The old songs were pretty much already flushed out for the most part.
Right Out was in a kind of skeleton form.
Into the Night, he threw in that was a pre-chorus you called?
Yeah. He got in
part.
early enough to help the final development.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But as far as like your guitar style playing,
And then style, I mean, I like the, you know, like you said, mentioned earlier, like Yngwie type stuff. I mean, I can't play any of that stuff, but, you know, I love it. You know, I'm not that good. I don't have the focus to practice anymore like I used to. But, yeah, I'm definitely more just like the wanky kind of guy. And Marco's definitely very much more like riff driven and, you know, writes like cool songs and cool like pounding riffs and stuff, you know. Whereas, you know, kind of, I'll throw some riffs here and there and then shoot him to Adam. Then he'll flesh out some stuff, shoot it back to me. Like Eldest, you know.
Yeah.
Like you imagine the beginning of Eldest, like bass and drums. And then I threw on like 4 or 5 guitars on top of that first section of the intro. So,
Well, it balances really well on the album. So I think there's one track we haven't mentioned at all, Into the Night. Let's talk about that one real quick. Then we'll talk touring.
Oh,
Okay.
Yeah.
There's
So
some
Into
Mendoza
the Night,
riff.
yeah, that was one of Michael Mendoza's songs. Actually, he had a couple riffs lying around back when we first pooled all these ideas. And that one was probably the longest in development, and everybody kind of got in there and put a little shift to it and so forth. We played around with different riffs, different rhythms for the bridge section where he does his solo and so forth. But
Went through different parts, versions live too.
Yeah, we had actually played that one on live sets before it was fully written, honestly. But the finished version on the album is something that even Marco was, you know, joined us early enough to get in on, and he definitely gave it more of like a you know, bang your fist kind of chorus feel and so forth. That really tied the whole thing together.
Yeah,
Nice.
that's cool. That's a fun one to play. Could be a bitch sometimes too, especially that intro riff Mendoza came up with. It's a finger twister.
Oh, and I forgot, you guys earlier this year, before you actually released the album, you released a single, Raise the Fist, which I think only came out as a 7-inch flexi disc,
Yeah.
which obviously, unless you had access to it, nobody else has really heard it. I can't find it anywhere on the internet. I've never even heard the song. Number one, why did you guys not throw it on the album? And because there were only 8 songs on the album anyway. And number two, is there a way for newer fans who never got a chance to get the flexi disc, because that's obviously a limited edition sort of thing, to get their ears on it? Is there a digital format of it or something somewhere?
We do have digital copies. I don't think it's uploaded on any web platforms yet, but we can certainly look into that. The reason it's not on the album was because it wasn't really, we kind of honed in on those 8 songs and just left that lying around. So that was one of your riffs that was kind of in a very raw form. And working with No Remorse Records about the release, they asked us, hey, do you guys have any extra songs lying around we can use as a promotional bonus? And we're like, not really, but we can make one. So it was kind of a fun challenge to come up. I think we had like 3 weeks to get this thing finalized, and limited to 3 minutes to fit on a 7-inch at 45 and so forth. And it was kind of under the gun. So I just like slapped together this bare bones version built off of his initial riffs and so forth, and sent it to him, and then he kind of nuanced things, layered some things on, and it's really just a demo form is available right now. So it's not something that we had really spent a lot of money on and we're looking to present. It was just kind of an 11th hour edition.
Yeah, the title suggests it'd be a real banger, so it just made me
there's a good chance that it'll be on some finished material in the future.
Nice. So before we get out of here, obviously we've pretty much been in lockdown for the better part of a year. Bands haven't been able to tour, which is where your bread and butter and your true love is and everything. You guys had to cancel your South American tour because of all of this stuff. I know when it's over, you guys will go finish that. You'll go play some European shows. Do you expect to be able to do any US dates? I know it's harder here because the scene's more underground than it is in Europe and whatnot. Do you guys think that might happen, or?
I know we're only really against the idea of trying to headline anything ourselves. If we can coordinate with other bands, because like you said, it's so underground, it's hard to get a significant draw enough to legitimize taking a week off work to drive across the country, something of that nature. Everybody's obviously got full-time jobs and so forth. So it's not that we're uninterested in playing the U.S. It's just mainly the time and place kind of a thing, I guess.
It's the U.S. that's uninterested in us.
It's so weird. There's so many great U.S. bands, but they really only get the love over in places like Europe and South America, because when between grunge and the current pop scene, rock metal has sort of died a little bit here in the States in terms of the passion for it to go see it. And I think that might change a little bit in the next year or so, when people have had an entire year they couldn't have the option to get out. So 2021 could potentially be a real banging year for live bands. But it always made me wonder too. I mean, you guys got to go over and play some of those big festivals over there, and then you come back here and you play a club show. How weird is that to go from a huge stage with a ton of people to a little club with 40 sweaty people crammed in together?
Well, it was this is familiar. It was certainly more what we had been acclimated to. The surprise was being able to go to Europe and seeing those fans. They already knew the words to all this music that's been around for 30 years, so they're singing along to the chorus and stuff, and that energy passing back and forth was damn near impossible to recreate here as far as anything we've seen in the States. But that's not to say that there aren't diehard fans. There's just not enough of that, palpable excitement passed along. I guess there aren't enough batteries in the house or so forth.
The album's been out for about a month and a half now, something like that.
Yeah.
So have you been surprised with the critical response so far? Because it all seems to be pretty good from what I've seen. And what's the response been that you've heard from fans and everybody else?
It's been, like you said, but surprisingly positive. We were expecting more people to be kind of, tied on to the old sound and being, I don't want to say prejudiced because that's got negative connotations, but they were acclimated to what they were already familiar with. So this brand new sound with new songwriters and so forth was going to naturally be a hard adjustment. And so far, it seems like people have been pretty excited about it and accepting it pretty well. We were hoping that just the music itself would speak for us in a sense. Right. And there hasn't really been too much negative feedback at all, really, and that's very pleasing.
Well, and I think when you listen to the original EP and the sound of the band, and the fact that you had some songs that kind of fed over and bled into the new album, and you think about the natural progression of bands, I think this is fair to where Glacier would probably be at this point anyway. So I think
nice.
I think it came to fruition really well. All right, Adam and Michael, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us. Glacier, The Passing of Time is out now. Fantastic record. Everybody go out, support the bands, and hopefully we'll get a chance to see you on the road. And if not, hopefully there will be live videos from the European festival so we can enjoy it that way. Guys, you take care. Stay safe out there with all this COVID chaos and political craziness and everything.
Yeah, you too.
Bye.